Well, hello everyone. We're excited to have you today to talk a little bit about Catalyst. What is it? And answer all the frequently asked questions that we get from people who usually haven't been before and how it is kind of hard to describe. So I'm Chelsea Boozer. I'm the executive director of Rogue Water Lab, which puts on Catalyst. And we're joined today, and they'll be popping up here in a little bit, by Lily Lopez, a former multi-Catalyst alumnus and this year a co-host, Walnut Valley Water District, and as well as Greg Wukasch, who has helped co-design Catalyst and the experience we're going to kind of dive into and talk to you about here today. So to get into it, bear with us. We don't know if this next part is going to work, which is why we started a few minutes late. Technical difficulties that were not popping up in our practice run, but we want to show you, the best way to kind of understand what you're walking into in a catalyst, which is for you to walk away with better communication skills. But instead of doing it in the way that all the conferences you've ever been to do it, where we have speakers on a stage, we do it in a much different way. So instead of verbally describing that to you, I wanted to take 4 minutes at the very start of this and just kind of show you what last year's Catalyst World looked like. So Lily, if we can go to that, and we'll try to see if that works.
Before coming to Catalyst, I thought I needed expertise in community engagement. When I actually got here, I just needed willingness and openness to be in this space and be vulnerable.
Love the hands-on nature, getting in there, getting involved, meeting people, the vulnerability, and that's where real work happens and real learning happens.
This year, Catalyst became a production. Our attendees were cast members navigating through Acts 1, 2, and 3. Together, they co-wrote a story about collaboration and trust. The story our sector must live out if we're going to build a sustainable future where water services are resilient and accessible and affordable for everyone. At Catalyst, we don't just listen to water sector professionals. We bring together the storytellers and policymakers and other strategic partners who shape the narratives and decisions that impact all of our work.
With all I have learned this week, now we have something in writing that we can show the rest of the commissioners that this is what we need to do. It's almost like God put you in places with people that you need to be with and you didn't know you needed to be with them.
What I really appreciate here is where everyone is so open and friendly and wanting to meet you, hear your story, share experiences. And through that, you do feel heard. When you deal with something as important as water, you start to question your effectiveness and can I get this done? And to me, Catalyst is like a reset.
Everyone here is an agent of change and transformation in their daily roles. So what I took away was getting to meet all those other people, plus the leaders as well.
This year, we learned directly from journalists how stories about water are chosen and why some of them never make the news at all. Then when it came to influencing sustainable policy and investment, we had a mayor, a state senator, and a city council member tell us exactly what resonates and what doesn't when it comes to outreach to elected officials. Because progress begins with trust. And trust starts when we get in the same room, listen to each other, and build those relationships that last. At Rogue Water Lab, we know the hardest challenges in water aren't just technical, they're human. That's why Catalyst isn't only about strategies and sessions, it's about exploring the human dynamics that make collaboration possible. So through music and improv and storytelling, we paused to reflect on the masks that we wear at work and in our work, and the vulnerability it takes to remove them. In those shared moments, something powerful happened. We saw one another, not just as titles or positions, but as people.
It was really powerful to observe and be reminded of how little people think they are heard in their workplace as a person, maybe even just personally. It is our duty collectively to help support and make sure everyone feels heard, not just as a professional, but as a person really being heard. So I felt empowered and like called to duty to have something to do and respond to that. Anyone in this space at all should consider applying for the opportunity to come to Catalyst in the future.
By the final act, our cast made a collective commitment, an oath, to return back to their communities and direct a new story, one much, much better than the distrust and underfunded systems.
Catalyst 2025, have your clapperboards ready? Because Catalyst, that's a wrap. All right.
All right. Thanks for bearing with us through that. I decided to keep letting it go because at least it did. You got some of the images. One of the biggest questions we get, because they see videos like that, is what is Catalyst? Like, that doesn't look like a conference. And I really think it's because, in our professional space, we think learning only happens in what this template of a conference environment looks like. So when I'm asked what is Catalyst, I really feel like what you're asking me is, why do we design it? Why is it designed? Why is it a new environment? And so to talk about that, I wanted to bring up Greg Wukasch. So Greg has been co-designing the experience of Catalyst long before I was ever at Rogue. So Greg, if someone asked you this question, which I don't even think they know quite how to ask it in this way, but why is Catalyst designed?
Yeah, I think I really think that it goes back to kind of a philosophy that we've started embracing. And I definitely, after 28 years of being in the water space, have realized that knowledge is super important, of course. And we go to conferences and we get a lot of knowledge, but and I call that the content. But the context is equally or maybe even more important. And so when we're designing Catalyst, we're thinking about the content for sure. We're thinking about the people who are going to come in and who are going to inspire us and give us that information. But we're really, really looking at the context of it. What's the space going to look like? What are you going to feel when you're there? And y'all all know this. I mean, you go to conferences or you go to whatever meetings and you're in a room that's super cold or super hot and you begin to tune out. I can't believe I'll say this. I mean, this is going to be funny, but we go to in water spaces a lot of times. We go into really boring rooms sometimes, and we're sitting there and we're like tuning out because the rooms are kind of dull and kind of boring.
Yeah.
That's context, right? And so we design it to make sure that we're including both the context and the content so that you're getting this great experience of content, but you're being impacted visually and experientially in everything that we do at Catalyst. So we spend a lot of time, Chelsea, as you know, sitting down and really talking about every single design experiential aspect of Catalyst to make sure that you get this full experience that you've perhaps never had before.
Yeah, and what I try to tell people, and the part I love about it, it's not just so you have fun. It's not just because it's a cool venue or like environment that we're setting up. And also we're trying to model what we're teaching and preaching, and which is that there's a better way to engage. If we're going to win public trust for this sector, there's a much better way to engage. And some of this includes that context and environment that Greg's talking about. So next, I'm going to go into a little preview of the environment you'll step into in Catalyst 2026, and then I'll bring Greg and Lily back up to talk a little bit more. We're also, we have some frequently asked questions in this plan to answer for you, and if you have more that we don't cover, happy to answer those from the chat. So if we go to the next slide. When you walk into Catalyst 2026, our theme is you're invited. So it's all about hospitality. We are going to welcome you. You're making reservations, not registration. And you'll, go to the reservation desk. You'll get your menu. The first opening night experience on the next slide. The next slide is we'll, start this 3-day progressive dinner party. Look, when we talk about dinner parties and guests, and a lot of this is a metaphor. So the food we're serving up at a lot of our courses that we'll take you to along these 3 days is the exact learning Greg was talking about, the knowledge you want to bring back home. So we'll preview what's to come with a tasting menu on the opening night. And if you go to the next slide, I'm leaving a lot of mystery to this. I don't want you to know exactly what's going to happen everywhere, but kind of the pictures can kind of set the stage and give you a sense. But we're really going to explore five-star service and what that means for public trust. If you're like me, I came up in the utility world. It's how I got into water, and we've talked about customer service here and there. I've never been trained on it. I don't think we talk enough about the hospitality and what we do. And so at Catalyst, we're going to kind of pause and think about what would delivering five-star service in our work actually look like and what that can mean for public trust. So if you go to the next slide, night one, we start our dinner party. We're in the ballroom. We're kind of amongst each other. Day two, we go out into the community, right? We can't learn these skills like in the confines of a boardroom and a conference room. We have to go out into the communities we're serving. And so we'll be at a couple different venues in Balboa Park, which is a vast park system in San Diego. And so we'll start off maybe something like this. And if you go to the next slide, then we'll have you actually talk to real people. And usually the kind of people that come to Catalyst doesn't scare you so much, but it definitely sometimes feels a little bit outside of the comfort zone, outside of the setting of, oh, wait, I was at a conference and now you have me interacting with the public. But we will fully equip you to do this. And we really hope to learn from the public too at Catalyst. So next venue, next slide. We'll also take you into some spaces that look more at home. We understand like you're not always in a ballroom or on this like fancy outdoor stage in the work that you do. And so we'll be in some spaces like that as well, talking about a lot of the hot button topics that we're all dealing with and the hard conversations that we're having with our communities. If you go to the next slide, then we want to take you to the civic courtyard, where we kind of talk about other types of stakeholders, elected officials, and decision makers. We'll not only talk to some, but we'll also do kind of some exercises about how do you get to decision makers? Who is the actual decision maker? Yeah. So next slide. We hope to end the day in this surprise venue that we are working on securing for you guys. Really just like a unique space to talk more about how be in a space where the public actually interacts with our work, which might be, venues that surprise you. And so if you go to the next slide, the last day of Catalyst, September 3rd, is really about putting this into action. So we've kind of set the stage with hospitality. We've kind of unpacked five-star service and what we're getting into. Day two, we got a lot of skills and tools and heard from a lot of experts on how to do that. And day three is about you cooking this up back home. How do you take all of this back and do something with it? So if you go to the next slide, that kind of just set the stage for you. I wanted to show you kind of what you're walking into in this year's Catalyst design. But I want to call up Lily Lopez and Greg Wukasch again. I feel like I know Greg's answer, so I want to start with Lily, but we'll all be up here. I'm curious from you guys, in all the Catalysts of past, what has been your favorite venue and why?
I think one of my favorite venues was when we did, or you had us going down the rabbit hole for the
Mm.
Willy Wonka, was no, Alice in Wonderland. I'm confusing all,
Willy
all
Wonka,
of
yeah,
them.
yeah. It was down the
Yes,
rabbit
it
hole though.
was,
We
yeah,
played
it
with it a
was
little
so
bit there, yeah.
yeah, I think that one was a really great transition into not knowing exactly what Catalyst is going to bring, right? Letting go of having to see the agenda, letting go of needing to feel like you're prepared and you already know what's happening. So you're setting up these like expectations of what's going to happen. And sometimes when you're going into something and, oh, I thought this was going to be about that. I'm actually like not happy about it, or that was better than what I thought it was. I liked going into a completely blank slate and having so much fun. I mean, I think we really did have an opportunity to be a kid again there.
Yeah, and that one is a perfect example of when you come to Catalyst in our gatherings, you're stepping in a whole new world. And we took that super literal that year. That was in 2024, and we told guests you're stepping into this portal, and now you're in the world of pure imagination for 3 days. And they actually had to exit a portal to go back home. So that one was really fun. Greg, what about you?
Yeah, I'm about firsts, I think. And so I would say that one for sure, because that was kind of a renewed effort with Catalyst. I think with you coming on that first year, we kind of renewed Catalyst into a little different venue and design. So I look at that as kind of a first, like a first for you incoming. But I think, of course, my favorite was Catalyst number one, the first one
Mm.
we ever had. Because quite honestly, we just didn't know if anybody was actually going to show up at all. And when people actually came and came to San Antonio and started showing up, and then I've shared this before, but it was the moment that and I still to this day get chills at the very end of the last sort of session of that Catalyst number one, at the very end of it, and I said, "So, does anybody have any questions?" And there was somebody sitting in the front row who'd been in the industry for a very, very long time, and I just wasn't quite sure how she was engaged with all of this kind of wacky stuff we were doing. And she said, "All I want to know is when is this going to happen again next year?" And I knew in that moment I was like, "This is something, and this is going to be something unique and different and valuable." And here we are, years later, just continuing on with it. So firsts have always been like a joy for me. Um, yeah, that's my answer.
Yeah, and I love having you around because I obviously wasn't here for, or I mean, I didn't attend the first Catalyst. A lot of the first ones were in Texas and kind of with the Texas audience, and then went national. And I'm so blessed and lucky that it did. I was attending Catalyst before I was ever on the team at Rogue. Um, yeah, and so I love that. My favorite venue actually was not one of the ones that people would say like super extravagant and exciting. We've been to SeaWorld, we've been to like really cool water museums and children's museums. But mine was in City Hall at Milwaukee last year. And I think a lot of it is just because of who I am personally. Like that kind of older historic building like spoke a lot to me. Government affairs is my background and my passion. And what I loved there was that we behaved in a way that you might not expect at a city hall. And what I love about that is that we need to do that more in our work. Like I don't know whatever definitions we have of professionalism, and we think it to mean like we can't have personalities. And so I remember being in that venue at City Hall about to introduce the mayor of Milwaukee, and I was recapping the night before with all the guests, and I started tearing up and crying. So I was literally crying in front of all these people before introducing the mayor, who I had never met like in person yet, and that's okay. Like that's human, and so I think that was one of my favorite venues just because of the like personal tie behind it. Next, we want to show you preview some of the sessions and guides, just so you know a little bit of what's coming. So if you go to the next slide, we do have the draft menu online. So I'll put this in the chat now. I'll put it again later. You can go to our website and kind of peruse kind of who you'll be hearing from the next couple over Catalyst. We're not going to preview all of them. We're just going to kind of talk to you about some. These two I'm really excited about. They're going to open us up on day 2 at Balboa Park. So Dr. Shalini Rajhala is the executive director of Pre-Collective. She has a background in the Obama administration and like working with the EPA and in environmental work. And Pre-Collective is all about helping. It's not even just the water sector. They work in all kinds of sectors, but helping groups when the project doesn't really exist yet, like the before stage, the messy work of how do you collaborate with all these different parties, with the community and with this company and with this. And she could probably say that so better. Please check out Pre-Collective's website. But what drew me to her of like, you got to be at Catalyst this year not only is she in California, but was just that it isn't that what happens in our sector that we're so scared of like the pre-engagement of what that looks like. And a lot of it is because we just don't know what to do. Like we've never been taught this stuff. I've never been to a water conference and heard anyone like Dr. Shalini or Jennifer speak. So we have Jennifer Tabanenko, who is president of Action Research. This woman literally wrote the book on behavioral science. She was a co-author on an edition that comes out, and she also is a practitioner. And so she literally uses behavioral science in campaigns of how to message and how to market and how to interact with whether it's your customers or your guest or your community, whoever your audience is. She has a lot of really cool examples, and she's going to teach us not only how to do this, but let us practice it too. So super excited about those two. And if you go to the next slide, I was hoping to be able to give you some breaking news, but here in the next week, watch our socials. We have a really exciting elected official, national level, who's going to be at Catalyst this year. Really just like helping us break down, hey, how do we reach you? Like, how do we work with you? Do you care about water? Like, what are the things that you're kind of working on and what reaches you? So just to give you a taste of that, I'm going to show you a 30-second clip of the mayor of Milwaukee. Now, last year's theme was about the media and reporters, so he'll talk a little bit about that. So if we go to the next slide.
Mayor Cavalier Johnson, the city of Milwaukee, and how do I handle media pressure? I try to be prepared. I try to anticipate what questions may be asked. And then my golden rule of thumb is just tell the truth. You know, sometimes when you're an elected official and you're in a position of power, you're in a position of media intrigue, they're going to ask you questions, and sometimes they'll be the gotcha questions. Don't be afraid to say, I don't know. Don't be afraid to say, let me get back to you. And then just tell the truth.
Yeah, and I think that just gives you a taste of how, one thing when we bring in elected officials to Catalyst, which we have the past 3 years, is really to help humanize them. Like they are people too. And Mayor Cavalier did such a great job of that last year, and we hope to have that again this year. Then George Schuler, I'm really excited about. He's co-founder of Connecting for Change, is going to talk to us about network mapping and influence mapping. Again, a skill we all need to be using every day. It's relevant to everyone's work, but most of us have never been taught. And so he's going to talk about like, yeah, you talked to the decision maker, but was that actually the decision maker, or was it someone else kind of influencing the decision? So super excited about that activity. Next slide. Lily, do you want to introduce this one briefly?
Yes, super happy to. I'm really excited for this session. Latinas in Water, Black Water Professionals Alliance is coming together to really talk about the way we create spaces and who they're for, who they're not for, the intention, the community. It's going to be just a really heart-to-heart open conversation, and hopefully really engaging with our audience of if you've been on either side where you're wondering where is this gap in my community and how can it be filled, or why does this exist, I feel excluded, like going into all of these conversations that sometimes in larger venues we aren't able to. And this will be, I know for sure, Latinas in Water, our first conference presentation session. And so I'm so glad it's nowhere else but Catalyst. So
Oh,
I know, yeah, we'll be presenting or sharing on the third day, and doing a little get together afterwards as well.
awesome. And the next slide, we will be bringing in some leaders. So we have the CFO, WSSC Water, Tim, and Jose is General Manager at Valley County Water District. And really excited for this conversation. It's also on day 3 to prepare you to go back home of so many people that we interact with Catalyst or in other places with Rogue Water tell us, hey, my boss would never go for that. I love this stuff. Like, I'm so pumped up to go do it. I don't have the resources. So we're going to bring in the bosses and we're going to ask them, hey, why won't you approve her stuff? Like, why can't you give us more staff? And so obviously we picked 2 who get the importance of public outreach and engagement and have their own stories and paths of like how they got on board with that. And maybe they didn't always start that way, but also to kind of tell us how to make pitches to executives to get some of this work supported. So next slide, super briefly again, I'm not going over the whole menu, but it is on our website. We'll be releasing more information over the next couple of weeks. We have two more exciting guests I'm really excited to tell you about. We'll be talking about all the hot topics, reuse, data centers, trust, social media influencers. We'll be touching on all of that this year. So that leads me to my next frequently asked question. Lily, actually, I'm going to come back to you, Lily. So who attends Catalyst? This is one of the most misconceptions, I think, of who is Catalyst for. I've heard so many different things. I've heard it's just for utility people. Not true. I've heard it's just for communicators. We're all communicators, but I think they mean someone with communications in their job title. That's not true. I've heard it's for just young professionals. That's not true. So I'm going to watch this quick video from an engineer who attended Catalyst last year.
Not knowing what to expect at Catalyst, I was looking for is the opportunity or expectation I'd get exposed to some industry leaders who are focused in change and transformation. And that's what I know I need and more of, and I think many of us do. But finding once I'm here, it was really meeting everyone. Everyone here is an agent of change and transformation in their daily roles. So what I took away was getting to meet all those other people, plus the leaders as well. That personal change really happened on day 2, where we went through some exercises, right, on our perceptions on ourselves and on others. It was really powerful to observe and be reminded of how little people think they are heard in their workplace as a person, maybe even just personally. It is our duty collectively to help support and make sure everyone feels heard, not just as a professional, but as a person really being heard. So I felt empowered and called to duty to have something to do and respond to that. Anyone in this space at all should consider applying for the opportunity to come to Catalyst in the future.
Yeah, so if you go to the next slide. Yeah, Lily, I wanted to ask you, sorry, the slide before. Back to the question, who attends Catalyst? You brought some operators one year. I can't remember if I told you I was going to ask you about this. People don't think, what, operators? This is not for operators. It totally is. How was that experience for your team? Why did you bring operators to Catalyst?
So obviously starting Catalyst of attendance wise, it was my team in particular, right? Because we are dealing directly in the communication side. And at my agency, we really look at the whole professional development opportunities for all of our employees, regardless of what just their expertise or background or title is. And as Catalyst is always the space that really challenges our skill set and allows us to have the opportunity to think differently, experience things differently, have conversations in a unique way. I saw this as value for the rest of our team members. So I was looking at our operators. We brought 2 operators, one who was working actually out in the field, and then one in water quality. We had someone from finance and someone from customer service come one year. So it was about a group of 6 people. And them going into it was okay, I'm going on whatever Lily says, I'm going on this conference, she's taking us here. But afterwards, and they'll still talk about it now, the operators were definitely I never realized how on you always are to be able to prepare and answer questions for the public, or how much thinking and planning has to go into what we're saying and doing out in the community. And these are regular people that when we have events, they come to the events with us in the community to represent operations. And so I can see that change now of they understand it, when we're asking for that request of who can come, they're more comfortable with it. They know what to expect and they're enjoying it more because it ties back to the experience they had at Catalyst. And it just makes sense too of what we do in water management. It always ties back to the people in the community.
Yeah, I think it's so good. I think, our people out in the field talk to more customers than half of the people in the offices do. And so obviously equipping them how to do that makes sense. As you go to the next slide, I'll tell you a story when my old utility, the director of customer service came one year And he left saying, I learned more about customer service in those 3 days than my entire 20-year, or no, not about customer service, but about like connecting with customers, like the customer experience, than in his 20 years. And so that's kind of what you have in store for you at Catalyst. Just touching on two other testimonials. So super excited to have Timothy as a guide this year, guiding one of our courses, which is a session. But Tim actually came as a guest. So he came in 2024. He was new to the water sector. And he signed up this year and I said, hey, while I have you there, can I get you to do something? And he said, Catalyst gives him the practical tools to help explain the financial decisions to customers with clarity and transparency. The bottom line, better communication helps build confidence and trust with the 1.9 million customers WSSC serves. And so I thought that was a good testimonial just to kind of show you the different types of people that come to Catalyst. Next slide is a CEO, not a utility, right? People sometimes think it's just utilities. He said because of Catalyst, he's reshaping the entire way they train their staff and engage with their clients. So Catalyst really is for everyone. If you lean in, like you're going to get something out of it. Next question we have, do I have fun or actually learn things? A lot of times I think your bosses are forcing you to ask this question, but we do have an answer for them. So let's go to the next video.
So this is my first time at Catalyst. I didn't really know what to expect. I knew it was different than other conferences, and I also knew that I'd never found a conference before for water communicators. Like I'd never seen something like that before. So I definitely wanted to give it a shot and see what it was all about. I just love the hands-on nature, getting in there, getting involved, meeting people, the vulnerability, and that's where real work happens and real learning happens. So, it definitely blew my expectations away. When we did the simulation of the water crisis and everybody was getting into it, that was a real learning moment for me. This is how it feels to be a person in a water crisis, not just, the side of the utility or the organization, but on the other side too, like, is my water safe? We're all in this together. We're all kind of facing the same challenges.
Yeah, so yes, learning happens. A lot of learning happens, and we're just doing it in a real active way where it's, the science and research shows it's going to stick with you, and modeling it in the way we want you to go back and engage your colleagues and your peers and your customers and your clients in the future. So I hope by now the frequently asked question you're asking is, how do I reserve my seat? So if you go to the next slide, there's a QR code. I'm putting the link in the chat. If you hit the next slide again, make sure to do this by August 10th. If for some reason, I know a lot of governments have different processes. If you, for some reason, cannot get your reservation in by August 10th, go ahead and reserve your hotel room because that absolutely closes. But you can email me. I'll put my email in the chat and say, like, hey, I'm planning to come. We're going through the approval process internally, and I'll make sure to save your seat for Catalyst, and we can get you fully registered and reserved later. This goes to one of the questions we have in the chat. So next slide, and then we're wrapping up. So if you have any more questions, feel free to put them in the chat or the Q&A. If you've been to previous Catalyst, you're probably asking what there are pre-workshops this year. We've never done that, but we had several organizations reach out to us to partner. So I'm going to highlight this real quickly for you. So next slide. Water Finance Assistance and HCB Strategies are partnering with Rogue to put on a data visualization workshop, better charts and graphs, and public speaking, like the art of advocacy. These are both half-day sessions. They happen on the Monday before Catalyst, which starts on a Tuesday afternoon. So if you're in San Diego, we'd love to have you. They would love to have you here. I've worked with both of them and just impressed by them both. Glenn has such a great way. If you might have attended our short webinars on this topic earlier this year, one of our most highly rated webinars, and people were asking for more. And so he's giving the in-person longer version where you actually can get on your computer and look at some of the data you might present, whether it's to your commission and board, the city council, or the public. There are much better ways. I learned so much because I'm not good at this. I'm an Excel stranger. So really excited for Glenn. And then Christy has been to so many, I hope she's not on hearing me say the way I'm about to explain this, but fancy, professional training on public speaking. and just a really great communicator and like the science behind the full presentation. And so these two pair together really well. You can attend both or you can attend one. Next slide. The Association of Metropolitan Water Agencies and Association of Regional Water Organizations also reached out to us, wanting to host their inaugural board governance workshop in coordination with Catalyst. So it will also be happening on August 31st. A full day session. They have a reception the night before. The next day, they have a tour of San Diego Pure Water. So the huge plant, the reuse plant that is going to be wrapping up construction around that time. This specifically is for your executive team, so your general managers, CEOs, CFOs, whoever, and the board. So city council or your specific board of commissioners or board of directors. They're going to go into governance insights broadly, practical tools on strategy and finance and all the things like your board members are working on every day, but specific to the water sector and just kind of some national trends and case studies. So I think if you go to the next slide, you can learn more about it. It's at the same link at Catalyst. Here are some of the topics. Some of the speakers like Manny Teodoro will be there. So we're excited to, offer that with them and let that kind of be tied on the day before Catalyst. So with the next slide, we'll leave up. And we invite you. We've got a seat reserved for you. We hope to have you on. And feel free to drop some more questions in the chat. I don't know if you can unmute. Honestly, feel free to unmute if you want to. I'll start with answering the ones that are already in the chat. So Janelle said, I've attended Catalyst when it was in Oceanside a couple years ago. It was great. Is the curriculum going to be the same? So what was in Oceanside a couple years ago was it was a Catalyst Plus. It was not the Catalyst. It was a 1 day kind of pop-up event. So it was just a taste. So it was not like the full 3 day experience. So this will be much different. You'll kind of step into a new world and kind of journey together with peers over the 3 days for this Catalyst. And yeah, we'll have different guides, different topics. Again, the menu is on the website, so you can kind of peruse that and look through that more. If there are no more questions, Lily, Greg, I don't know if you have any closing thoughts to invite our guests to reserve a seat.
Yeah, I'm a pretty big fan and get super excited. I could go on forever, but it is. I think the reason that it's called Catalyst, right, is to just catalyze you and your organization and the work that you do in a completely different way. It's to excite you. And I think we all need that. I think that all of us who work in this industry, I know for me, just this week, it's been a kind of a rough week. And so you go to something like this and you come out of it and you feel completely energized, ready to go engage your community in a different way. And it's something that lasts. It's not one of those things that you go and then you're like a week later, you're like, okay, the binder gets put up on the bookshelf and whatever. It's something that actually just gets ingrained in you and helps you become a better servant of the community. So yeah, I mean, if you're on the fence about it, I'm hoping to nudge you over that a little bit.
And before Lily comes on, it just reminds me, I'm typing this in the chat as we speak. Rogue's work is to equip, inspire, and empower the water sector to better engage to build public trust. And Callus is definitely the inspiration piece. Like people leave saying, I've never experienced anything like that. People leave saying, I'm taking this back and what's most proud for me over the past 3 years of hosting these is when I see what people have done, like the new program they started, the new customer that they've, talked to and engaged. And so, yeah, I love that, Greg. Lily, any thoughts?
Yeah, I was just gonna add on to, I mean, I'm super happy to welcome and be a part of the planning this year and it being in California. For those of you who aren't in California, I mean, what a perfect time. The weather is gonna be beautiful. We're gonna have delicious food. But really touching on Chelsea's point, first time coming, just you're gonna have a wonderful experience and make connections that you actually will reach out to in the future as you're implementing new ideas, or the access that you have to these general managers or utilities to ask them, I'm trying to present and pitch this idea. Can I run it by you? Like there's a very unique access that sometimes you don't always get in traditional water spaces, because you don't always have that opportunity to go one-on-one with each other. And I think the timing too, I'm sure everyone's been having a super busy summer. This year has been flying by, and it being in early fall, then the holidays coming, it hopefully allows you to have that space to, okay, been inspired. I have a couple months left in this year. What do I really want to see come to fruition? Or what do I really want to see 2027 have? So I think it's at the perfect time of the year for you to reset, reallocate, and think and really idealize, like, what does my community need? What does my utility need? And what do I need as an individual to continue growing?
Yeah, so good. Couldn't have said it any better myself from the both of you. So, all right. Well, thanks for joining. We hope we kind of showed you a little bit peek into what you might be stepping into in San Diego, and we'll hope to see you there. We're saving a seat for you. Bye, everyone.